Bill blast my sidekick. What's up, black? Give his hand a smack.
It just happened to just flow that direction. You feel me?
And I would only hope that it circle around again at least one.
In 1989, Kool G Rap was just a name listed in Queens homeless records. By 2026, that same name appeared in asset reports worth millions of dollars. A massive money-making machine running non-stop. Sold-out tours streaming with billions of plays, a real estate portfolio worth tens of millions. He is a brand, an empire bearing his own name. But the truth is not that simple. Because the question is no longer how much money Kool G Rap has. It is this: how could a rapper with an estimated net worth of only about $1.5 million flex that he once gave Jay-Z an entire castle? And is Kool G Rap's million-dollar empire built purely on influence, or on shadows, that time has never fully erased? This is the moment when the secrets behind the name, Kool G Rap, are revealed. 1. The billion-dollar myth. Does Kool G Rap really have a billion-dollar mansion? Just hearing the title, you can already smell money. Thick as cigar smoke in a sealed Manhattan room. A billion-dollar estate. A rap mogul living behind towering black iron gates. White marble, a curved staircase. Crystal chandeliers casting golden reflections onto cold stone floors. You picture it right. We all have. Old Westbury. A mansion sprawling across acres of land lawns trimmed as neatly as a golf course. And inside it, the marble bathtub that once appeared in the Fast Life music video. Kool G Rap stands in that luxury, his voice cold as steel, telling street mafia stories, as if he were born into silk and velvet. The 1990s were the era of mafioso rap imagery. Suits, cigars, champagne mansions, larger than the imagination of a kid growing up in Queens. When Kool G Rap rapped about Money Street Empire's deals and ambition, people believed he was rich. Not just comfortably rich. Rich enough to buy the entire block he once lived on. Rich enough that if someone said he owned a billion-dollar estate, you would nod as if it were obvious. But the truth begins to surface when you look for paperwork. The old Westbury mansion used as a filming location was not Kool G Rap's personal property. It was a rental estate used for movie shoots. It was once listed for sale at around $13 to $14 million. A huge number. Very huge. But not a billion. And more importantly, there is no record showing Kool G Rap ever owned it. No deed, no transfer records, no estate registered under the name Nathaniel Thomas Wilson. We are facing an interesting paradox. The imagery is aristocratic luxury. The lyrics are soaked in money and power. Yet the documented physical assets do not reflect that picture. This is the first flip behind the headline. A billion-dollar estate does not exist in a physical sense. There is no marble castle bearing his name, no vast landholdings valued like the GDP of a small nation. So what made an entire generation believe he was that wealthy? Maybe because in rap, imagery can be stronger than bank statements. When someone tells street life stories with that level of cold precision, we assume he is speaking from above. When he paints the mafioso world with razor-sharp multisyllabic bars, we automatically see him as the owner of that kingdom. But if there is no real castle, no billion-dollar estate built from brick and steel, then where does Kool G Rap's estate exist? Maybe it is not on a real estate map. Maybe it lives somewhere else, somewhere more invisible, but more durable than concrete. $1.5 million, a formidable milestone. $1.5 million. That is the number most often mentioned when people talk about Kool G Rap's net worth. Not 50 million, not 200 million, and certainly not a billion. Just $1.5 million, according to estimates from Celebrity Net Worth. When people hear that figure, many pause. That's it, especially if you grew up during the era when he was called one of the greatest lyricists New York ever produced. A pioneer of mafioso rap. A name respected by Nas, Jay-Z, and generations after them. You would expect a legacy like that to come with a massive bank account. But this needs to be clear: $1.5 million is an estimate from public sources, not a tax filing, not an official asset disclosure. Sites like Celebrity Net Worth compile open data, disclosed contracts, estimated revenue, and industry standards. They also openly admit the number is only a reference. So could he be richer? Possibly. Could it be lower? Also possible. But the key point is this. There is no evidence showing Kool G Rap owns hundreds of millions of dollars in assets. No luxury real estate registered in his name. No massive catalog sale worth tens of millions like Bob Dylan or Bruce Springsteen. No reports of him selling publishing rights in a market-shaking deal. And most importantly, he did not build a business empire outside of music like Jay-Z did. Look at Jay-Z to see the contrast clearly. Jay-Z is not just a rapper, he is a businessman. Champagne cognac streaming entertainment companies, tech investments. He stacked income streams like glass floors in a Manhattan tower. When one stream slowed, another kept flowing. That is the financial mindset of a later generation. Kool G Rap comes from the 80s and 90s generation. Back then, rappers signed deals when the rules were not transparent. Streaming did not exist. YouTube was not born yet. There was no TikTok to suddenly make an old verse go viral and generate millions. The real profits sat with the labels. Artists took advances and waited to recoup. After recording costs, marketing, and distribution, what remained was far less than outsiders imagined. Think of it this way. A construction worker lays the foundation for an entire neighborhood, but the ownership papers for the buildings above are in someone else's name. That is the story of many golden era artists. So is $1.5 million a harsh truth or a smart truth? Harsh if you believe talent must always come with massive wealth. But it can also be the truth of someone who chose to remain a pure artist, not a business mogul. Someone who worked his craft for decades without bankruptcy, without disappearing, without financial scandal. And from here, the real question begins to take shape. If he has no investment empire, no $100 million deals, no billion-dollar estate, then where does Kool G Rap's money come from? The dream of the century. In the year 2000, Kool G Rap received a phone call that could make any underground rapper hold their breath. Raucous Records, one of the most respected labels in independent hip-hop at the time, offered him a deal worth $1.5 million. At the start of the 2000s, that number was not small. For many artists, it felt like a ticket into the rich in the game class. Hearing that, it is easy to imagine wire transfers flooding in, a massive check, a life-changing turning point. But the reality of the music industry is never that simple. That $1.5 million usually represents the total contract value, including the advance and production budget. An advance is money the label gives the artist so work on the album can begin. But it is not a gift. It is money that must be recouped, meaning the label recovers it from revenue before the artist sees real royalties. Put simply, if the album does not sell strongly enough, most profits go back to the label to cover costs. The artist only starts earning once the investment has been fully recovered. And in many cases during the 80s and 90s, recoupment took far longer than audiences realized. Break down the math. Out of that $1.5 million, how much was personal income? How much went to studio time producers, marketing videos, distribution tour, support? Then subtract management fees, lawyers, accountants. Just looking at a standard contract structure from that era shows that the cash actually pocketed was always far lower than the number printed on paper. There is another key factor. Around the year 2000, hip-hop was entering a transition period. Streaming did not exist. Revenue depended on CDs and physical distribution. If an album did not reach gold or platinum certification, long-term profit would not be enough to build the kind of lasting wealth people imagined. Kool G Rap landed a major deal. It was recognition. It was confirmation that he still had commercial value. But it did not mean he entered a completely different financial class. There is no evidence that after that deal he bought mansions worth tens of millions. No reports of investments in chains of businesses or luxury brands. That $1.5 million check was like a stage light flaring brightly for a moment. But that light did not turn into a permanent treasury. This highlights a familiar paradox in entertainment. The public sees a big number and assumes lasting wealth. Insiders understand that a big contract does not equal long-term asset accumulation. It is an opportunity, a lever. But if the structure is not favorable, if revenue does not break through, that lever only lifts you part way, not to the top of the tower. And this is the point that must be faced, honestly. Kool G Rap did not become wealthy from one explosive moment. He never had a financial moment that completely rewrote his status. His career did not operate like a startup raising funds and going public. It operated like a master craftsman living off his skill. He did not get rich from a single contract. He survived on long-term cash flow, shows, features, small but steady royalties, a reputation strong enough to always bring work. That is how he stayed alive for decades in an industry known for brutal attrition. And when you see that, you begin to understand that Kool G Rap's money story is not about an explosion. It is a story of endurance. The multi-million-dollar mansion chain price breakdown. People like to joke and call it Kool G Rap's mansion. Just hearing that already smells like money, right? A mafioso rap king living in a vast castle out on Long Island. But once you actually dig into it, the story gets far more interesting. The mansion most often associated with Kool G Rap sits in Old Westbury, Long Island. The specific address is 23 Old Westbury Road. This is exactly the kind of house that makes you understand why 1990s rap was obsessed with the boss image. So how much does it cost? At one point, it was listed for around $13.9 million. Other listings put it closer to $14.95 million. Simply put, you would need roughly $14 to $15 million just to step into this game. That number alone was enough for lifestyle channels to elevate it into a symbol of rap luxury. But the price is not the most shocking part. What really stuns people is the size and the way it was built. The house spans about 10,000 square feet, nearly 1,000 square meters of interior space. And that is just the building itself. It sits on nearly 16 acres of land, equivalent to more than 6 hectares. Imagine this: not a house in a tight residential neighborhood. This is a self-contained world. Open the gate, and you are in a different reality. Step inside, and the first thing that hits you is the grand hall, rising roughly 38 feet high. A ceiling like a 5-star hotel skylight, pouring light downward, twin staircases curving along both sides. It feels less like entering a home and more like walking into a Hollywood gangster film. The house has around 20 bedrooms and nearly 30 bathrooms. That number sounds almost absurd for a normal family. But this was never a house meant to be just enough. This is a house built for hosting, for entertaining, for making sure anyone who walks in immediately understands the owner is on a different level. There are 5 fireplaces, a library, an entertainment room, a private banquet hall. One lap around is enough to make your legs tired. And that is only the interior. Outside is a vast garden, lawns trimmed like a golf course. Enough space for horseback riding, outdoor parties, and some listings even mention the possibility of a helicopter landing pad. This is the kind of real estate where you are not just buying a house. You are buying privacy, buying distance, buying the feeling of being cut off from the noisy world. And here is the key thing to remember when making content. This mansion became famous in pop culture, appeared in music videos, and is often mistakenly labeled as a rapper's house. For Kool G Rap, it matched the fast life vibe so perfectly that people automatically linked that image to him. But in reality, there is no evidence showing this was his personal property. So when headlines talk about an estate, many people immediately think of this $15 million castle. But once you break it down, it is a symbol of a luxurious rap era, not paperwork with Kool G Rap's name on it. And maybe this is the most interesting part. Sometimes in hip-hop, imagery is so powerful that people believe it is real. All you need is Kool G Rap standing in the center of that 38-foot-high hall, lights hitting a dark suit, and the audience will believe he owns the entire place, even though the real asset story is far more complicated. Money machine shows, features, royalties. There is one truth people rarely say out loud when talking about Kool G Rap. He is not the kind of artist who hit one jackpot and lived in luxury for life. He is the kind of person who opens the studio door every morning, works like a master craftsman, and turns skill into steady cash flow over decades. If you look at Kool G Rap's money machine, it is not loud. No IPO, no champagne brand, no tech startup. But it runs consistently, like an old Swiss mechanical watch, understated but never stopping. First, features. There was a period when he recorded around 30 feature verses in less than 2 years. What does that tell you? It shows the market still needed him. Younger rappers still wanted a Kool G Rap verse to boost credibility. And in hip-hop features are cash. Done, recorded, paid. No waiting to see how many albums sell. No waiting for royalties to trickle in quarter by quarter. A verse from a legend is not just a few lines of rap. It is a brand. A stamp of street credibility. And each time Kool G Rap receives a direct fee. The numbers are not public, but in the underground and legacy artist world, this is real clear income that does not rely too heavily on the label system. Then come live shows. In the booking market for golden-era rap legends, estimated fees usually range from about $15,000 to $25,000 per show, depending on location scale and festival. For a long-established artist like Kool G Rap, that is entirely believable. Hip-hop festivals, underground tours, cultural events, golden-era anniversaries, Europe-Japan places that truly respect technical rap. Do the math. If he takes 10 to 15 shows a year, even more in strong years, that already adds up to several $100,000 in revenue before expenses. Not billionaire money, but career-sustaining money. Money that ensures he never has to disappear from the stage. But the most durable stream sits in publishing. Kool G Rap has been a songwriter since the 1980s. That means every time his catalog is streamed, replayed, placed on playlists used in DJ sets, royalties still flow. It may not be loud like a top-chart pop star, but it is long-term. Many older artists no longer release albums constantly, but they live off their catalogs. Songs like Road to the Riches, Fast Life, or the album 456 still appear on classic lists. Every play, every small license, every legal sample creates income. Not explosive, but steady. When you put these three elements together, feature shows royalties. The financial structure of Kool G Rap becomes clear. He is not a multi-industry businessman. He is a working legend. What does working legend mean? It means someone who does not need to show off assets to prove value. Someone who is still booked, still mentioned, still paid to do what he does best. Not ultra-rich, but not discarded. He is like a master builder in construction. Not a banker, not a real estate tycoon. But every major structure carries his fingerprints. And whenever repairs or upgrades are needed, people still call that same name. This is what surprises many people. When audiences hear the mafioso lifestyle in Kool G Rap's lyrics, they imagine matching luxury. But in reality, he chose or was pushed by the system into a different path. The path of a pure artist living off craft, not turning himself into a corporation. And maybe that persistence is the real story. In an industry where many explode and vanish, Kool G Rap is still here. Quiet, no financial scandals, no bankruptcy. But if the money is not massive, if there are no supercars lined up in the garage, if there is no 20-bedroom mansion under his name, why did an entire generation still believe Kool G Rap was rich? The billion-dollar influence. At some point, we have to stop and ask ourselves, if Kool G Rap does not own a $15 million mansion, does not have a supercar garage, does not run a multi-industry conglomerate, why is his name still spoken with near absolute respect? The answer lies in something you cannot price on Zillow. Kool G Rap's real estate is not in Long Island. It lives in the DNA of hip-hop. Before mafioso rap became a trend, before Suits Champagne, and street boss narratives flooded 1990s, albums Kool G Rap laid the first bricks. He described the criminal world with a cold, detailed, almost cinematic voice. No exaggeration, no spectacle, just stories delivered with a precision that made listeners believe he lived them. At that time, many rappers were still simple, single-syllable, straightforward storytellers. Kool G Rap arrived with dense, multisyllabic structures, internal rhymes, broken rhythms, a technical flow like a boxer moving inside a tight corner. He did not just rap. He built a new standard for technique. Those who came after saw it. Nas has openly acknowledged Kool G Rap's influence. Biggie absorbed the mafioso storytelling and polished it into something more luxurious and glossy. And Jay-Z, who later became hip-hop's business icon, never hid the fact that he learned from those before him. You can look at Jay-Z's career like a Manhattan glass tower. Tall, bright, reflecting sunlight visible to everyone. But no one sees the deep concrete foundation underneath. That foundation does not sparkle. It does not appear on magazine covers. But without it, the tower would never stand. Kool G Rap is that foundation. He did not build a liquor empire. He did not take companies public. He did not sign $100 million deals. But he built standards. And those standards multiplied across generations. Think about it this way. If Jay-Z sells a liquor brand for hundreds of millions, that is tangible wealth. But if Kool G Rap influenced Jay-Z and Jay-Z influenced the entire industry, then that original influence spreads exponentially. It is like a seed. You do not see its value immediately. But when the tree grows and bears fruit, people finally understand where the original value came from. Mafioso rap did not appear by accident. Multisyllabic flow did not become a standard by accident. Cinematic storytelling did not become a trend by accident. Kool G Rap helped push all of it onto the map. So when people use the phrase billion-dollar estate about him, they may not be talking about bricks and mortar. They are talking about influence. Influence has no listed price, no sales contract, but it carries weight. It lives in how young rappers rhyme today. It exists in how New York hip-hop defines real. And this is the most beautiful paradox of the story. The one who lays the foundation is rarely the richest. The one who builds the upper floors gets the spotlight. But that does not diminish the value of the foundation. If you dig into hip-hop history, you will find a thread connecting Queens in the 1980s to global stages decades later. That thread is named Kool G Rap. His estate has no iron gates, no security, no infinity pool. His estate lives in how modern rap operates, in the belief that lyrics can be sharp, complex, cinematic, in the fact that later artists could turn street stories into global brands. And if we are being honest, that is the most durable kind of asset. Money can be spent, houses can be sold, cars can become outdated, but influence does not disappear. It is passed down, recreated, spoken through generations. Kool G Rap may not have a billion-dollar mansion on paper, but if hip-hop is a multi-billion-dollar city, he is one of the first stones laid into its foundation. And sometimes real value is not about how much you own. It is about how many people build their careers on what you left behind. The flex of the century gifting a mansion to Jay-Z. Just hearing this line, you can already smell the flex. Kool G Rap gave Jay-Z a multi-million-dollar mansion. The century's biggest move. A legend handing the castle keys to the heir. Sounds incredible, right? But when I peel back each layer, the story looks different. First, there are no real estate transfer records showing Kool G Rap ever gifted or sold a mansion to Jay-Z. No paperwork, no tax filings, no reporting from financial or real estate media confirming it. With someone on Jay-Z's level, every property deal gets chased by the press. If a mansion had been gifted, it would have hit front pages a long time ago. In reality, Jay-Z built his own real estate portfolio. He and Beyoncé bought a Malibu mansion for around $200 million, making it one of the most expensive home deals in California. New York penthouses, Los Angeles estates, all tied to Jay-Z's name, and the money from his business empire. So where does the gifted mansion line come from? This is where we have to read the word "gave" carefully. In hip-hop culture, gave does not only mean handing over house keys. It can mean giving opportunity, giving inspiration, giving a blueprint. Kool G Rap did not give Jay-Z a brick-and-mortar mansion. He gave Jay-Z a foundation of thinking. Before Jay-Z built his refined boss image on Reasonable Doubt, before mafioso rap became a commercially successful style, Kool G Rap was already telling those stories with cold sharpness. Multisyllabic patterns, complex flow, cinematic narrative. Young artists in New York heard it and learned. Jay-Z has name-checked Kool G Rap in his own lyrics. That is not small talk. In hip-hop, mentioning an elder is a public acknowledgement of influence. It is like saying, "I'm standing here because someone cleared the path." And this is the real climax. Kool G Rap did not hand Jay-Z house keys. He did not sign a deed. He did not stage a ceremony outside a mansion gate. He gave Jay-Z the way to build an empire. He gave the craft of complex rhyming the skill of telling street stories with cinematic finesse, the ability to turn gangster imagery into a cultural symbol. Jay-Z then did what his generation became great at, turning influence into a brand, turning the brand into money, turning the money into assets. If Jay-Z is the owner of a $200 million glass tower, then Kool G Rap is the one who taught how to lay the first brick. So when someone says Kool G Rap gave Jay-Z his multi-million-dollar mansion, that line can be true in a different way. Not about real estate, about legacy. And in hip-hop, sometimes the blueprint is worth more than the house keys. Kool G Rap's real legacy. So after all the numbers, the $14 million listings on Long Island, the supercar theories, and the flex of the century, we come back to a much simpler question. What is Kool G Rap's real legacy? First, we have to say it straight. There is no billion-dollar estate in his name. No marble castle valued like the GDP of a small town. The mansions tied to mafioso rap imagery were cultural backdrops, not ownership paperwork. His net worth, according to the most common estimates, sits around $1.5 million. Not a number that makes Wall Street turn its head. Not enough to start an investment fund or buy a sports team. And there is also no evidence that he ever gifted Jay-Z a multi-million-dollar mansion, the way clickbait headlines claim. If you only look at a balance sheet, Kool G Rap's story looks much smaller than the image suggests. But that is when you have to change the measuring stick. Some assets do not sit in a bank. Some estates cannot be searched on Zillow. And Kool G Rap owns something like that. Influence. He did not just rap, he shaped how rap works. Before multisyllabic writing became a standard, before dense technical flow became a status marker, Kool G Rap was doing it when it was still an exception. He turned rap into a maze of rhyme, where every line has layers, every beat has intention. Listen to albums from the early 80s and 90s, and you can hear the shift, from simple structures to complex stories like film scripts. Mafioso rap did not just appear as a trend. It was built brick by brick, and Kool G Rap was one of the people holding the trowel. That influence did not stop with one generation. Nas grew up in that same New York air. Biggie took street storytelling to a commercial peak. Jay-Z turned it into a global brand. When those names are spoken as monuments, you can see the thread running backward. Kool G Rap was not the one who built the tallest tower, but he was the one who dug the deep foundation. If Jay-Z is a glass building reflecting Manhattan sunlight, Kool G Rap is the concrete under the ground. You do not see it in photos. You do not take selfies with it. But without it, the structure above starts to shake. His technique is legacy. The way he handles rhythm, the way he weaves rhymes, the way he tells stories with a cold, almost emotionless precision. That got passed along through cassette tapes, CDs, MP3 streaming. 4 decades later, his name still shows up in debates about the greatest lyricists. Respect that lasts 4 decades is not small. So many rappers explode and disappear. Kool G Rap is not a pop star riding chart cycles. He is a technical standard, and standards outlive trends. The respect inside the culture is the biggest point. In hip-hop, money can make you famous, but only skill and influence make you respected. When a young rapper says Kool G Rap's name, it is not for views. It is to show they understand history. And maybe this is the real billion-dollar estate. Not $15 million on Long Island. Not $200 million in Malibu. But the fact that his name exists inside the structure of a culture worth billions of dollars. Hip-hop today is a massive industry. Brand deals, global tours, billions of streams. And inside that structure, part of the DNA comes from people like Kool G Rap. You might not see it on asset paperwork, but you can hear it in how modern rap operates. Some people own mansions, some people own supercar collections. And then, there are people who own an entire generation. Kool G Rap may not be rich in the bank sense. He may not walk out from behind iron gates of a 20-bedroom estate. But if hip-hop is a vast city of glass towers, glowing billboards, and million-dollar stages, then he is one of the first bricks laid into the ground. That brick does not sparkle, but it carries weight. And sometimes what carries the weight is what is worth the most.
We encourage viewers to approach the content with an open mind, critical thinking, and to always cross-reference with multiple sources in order to form their own perspective. That's the reality of the game. Fame always comes with a price. If you vibe with the content and want the real uncut stories, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the Black Vault.